welcome to this first Repsol Corporate Venturing Showcase. My name is Alex Barrera, and it's going to be my pleasure to be sharing this space with you guys. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, corporate venturing at Repsol is all about finding the right companies, the right innovation that aligns well with the priorities of the organization. And precisely to talk about that, we're going to see 4 incredible startups during our next space that are all around the advanced technology and advanced material vertical. So let me give you a little bit of an overview of how we're going to do this today, and I hope that everyone enjoys the show. So we're going to start with an initial talk by Jaime Martin. He's the Executive Director for Technology and Corporate Venturing at Repsol. Afterwards, we're going to be checking all the 4 pitches of all these startups, which I know for a fact because I've been talking and watching the pitches for a while now that they are extraordinary companies that I think everyone's really going to enjoy. And then we're going to move on to a roundtable with a couple of invited speakers that we have here physically with me on the stage, but also connecting with all corners of the world to talk about advanced materials and what's the evolution of all these things. And finally, we're going to have the closing words by Clara Rey. She's the Corporate Venturing Director at Repsol, and I'll be closing down the event after that. So, well, we know what the plan is. Are you guys ready? Is everyone ready? Let's do this. So please welcome our first speaker, first guest of the afternoon. A big applause for the Executive Director for Technology and Corporate Venturing at Repsol, Jaime Martin.
Welcome to our Repsol Corporate Venturing Showcase, held within the framework of South Summit 2020. Thanks to Spain Startup Organization for giving us the chance to share with all of you this space. Repsol Corporate Venturing Fund is a strategic fund focused on bringing solutions to the business challenges through the investment in disruptive technologies and new business models. Our current portfolio has 23 companies, and our corporate venturing team evaluates nearly 1,000 companies and opportunities every year. Repsol Corporate Venturing Fund is one of our vehicles under our Open Innovation scheme and provides to the entrepreneurs the opportunity to test in the real field, in the real facility, their ideas, their technologies, their projects. We seek different technologies in different search fields, but with greater focus in renewables, low carbon, circular economy, and advanced mobility. The energy transition has to be taken place without forgetting the capacity that we have to provide value in the short term. And the innovation is to be key in this process, in this journey to a decarbonized future. Repsol has been long recognized by playing a differential role between the different peers in implementing very ambitious plans to reduce carbon emissions. Last year, we decided to go one step further. In December, we launched a public commitment to be a net zero company by 2050. Repsol Venturing helped us to boost all the cycles in the energy transition. We are deeply convinced that a win-win situation emerged from the collaboration between the startups and the corporations. We work very closely with our portfolio companies in order to provide them all our support, our full support in this pre-COVID-19 situation. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you enjoy the session.
Thank you very much, Jaime. It was a pleasure having you. And without further ado, let's go and check those startups. So to start the afternoon, we have an incredible startup with offices in several parts of the world, based in the northern part of Spain, but also with offices. We're going to connect later on with them out of Boston. But I want to welcome a company that, for me personally, is actually very, very interesting because they're going to be talking about graphene, which is one of the most important advanced materials, among many others, but one that has been receiving a lot of coverage in the news. But there's always this feeling like is this really being used? Are we really building things with graphene? Are we really putting it into our devices, into our machines? Well, precisely to talk about that, please welcome our first startup of the afternoon. A big applause for Jesus de la Fuente, founder and CEO of Graphenea.
This is Jesus de la Fuente. I'm the founder and CEO of Graphenea. Our mission is to revolutionize the semiconductor industry with graphene technology. The problem is that the semiconductor materials that we are using nowadays, we are approaching the physical limits of those materials. And we see that on every device. The industry, the semiconductor industry, needs significant breakthrough improvements, especially for memory, 3D NAND chips, photonics for better communications, and advanced biosensors for health measurements and medical diagnostics. These new materials, like graphene, are very difficult to integrate in real manufacturing plants, let's call fabs, in the semiconductor industry. So that's the reason that our solution is to offer a dedicated graphene foundry. In our dedicated graphene foundry, we take the design from the customer and we take charge of all the manufacturing steps. We produce the graphene materials, we fabricate the chips, and then we send the already tested and validated chips to the final customer. This is a great advantage because we can reduce the technology adoption cycle and the time and cost that the customers need to develop a graphene-based application. And we offer this from from just one wafer, just a few thousands of chips to medium and large scale production. This graphene foundry addressable market, considering only biosensors and photonics, could surpass 300 million easily. And if we are able to introduce these innovations in larger, even larger applications like 3D NAND memory chips in the copper interconnect layers, that could be even a larger market, addressable market for Graphenea. Currently, we have a market share of 42%. We are leaders in this emerging technology. Our competitors are mainly in US, Japan, and South Korea. Our business model is simple. We produce wafers, then we can have hundreds of chips on each wafer, and then we make all the manufacturing steps, dicing and testing, and supply the final chip to the customer. Assuming competitive prices in the market, this could easily surpass the 300 million revenue on a year basis. And this kind of business model is very profitable. Typically, the foundry model has EBITDA margins from 35 to 40%. How we commercialize this? So as you can imagine, this is a key account, case-by-case business development and sales process. We have our key customers are large companies around the world. We supply to leading medical devices, diagnostics companies. We supply to photonics. We supply to the R&D departments of chips, of microprocessors and memory chips around the world. All of our production is done in San Sebastian in Spain. And also we have business development office in Boston, in US, and also in Tokyo with the collaboration of a local agent. With this model, we can approach, most part of the market, especially the large customers that they are moving ahead and trying to move these devices from prototype stage to real commercialization. And offering this foundry model, we can speed up that process and make the transition much faster for everybody. We are the right team for this mission. We combine knowledge from the semiconductor industry, from chemists, physics, electronics, and business development and financial knowledge. We have scientific advisors from MIT, UT Texas, Texas Instruments, and part of our team previously worked in some of the leading semiconductor institutions in the world, like Intel or IMEC. This is the right time for this breakthrough. Join us on this mission. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jesus. Pleasure having you. It's always a pleasure listening to you, right to the point. Fantastic delivery, fantastic startup. Great job on what you're doing. And if we have anyone that have any questions about our startups that we're going to be showcasing here, please be advised that we've enabled the Venture Incorporating email, so corporate venturing at repsol.com. You can see it on the screen. So if you have any questions, please write us an email. We will select the ones that we feel that are more immediately answered, and we'll answer those on stage. But for the rest of the questions, we will be answering every single question privately afterwards. Okay, so please, if you have any questions, you have the email here, corporate venturing at repsol.com, and please don't be shy, you'll get an answer. And to move forward, let's go with our next startup. In this case, we're talking about, you know, we've always heard about different materials, but there's this name that keeps coming all the time, which is nanomaterials. Nanomaterials. What is it about this tiny little thing? Well, to talk about what can you build, what are the incredible properties, and what can you achieve with such nanomaterials, I want to welcome our next startup from Spain. Please welcome Tatiana Lopez, CEO of NanoGap.
Hello, everyone. NanoGap is a materials company with a completely unique platform technology, atomic quantum clusters, AQCs. This technology is a new generation of catalysts for the clean tech space. NanoGap has a completely new material that can improve orders of magnitude the conventional catalyst. And we have been able in 3 years to generate a revenue of more than 1 million euros and close 10 projects with major partners in place. So what is a catalyst? If we have a reaction A, a reactant A, plus a reactant B to give a desired product C, this is a reaction, and sometimes these reactions don't perform alone. They are not favorable. So you need to push the reaction, and for that we use a catalyst. A catalyst is a substance that helps a reaction go. For example, in the photosynthesis, there are catalysts. A plant has a catalyst that is able to convert CO2 plus sunlight into oxygen. So a catalyst improves the efficiency of reactions, reduces the energy consumption on a reaction, and also reduces the time and the cost. AQCs is a completely new catalyst, disruptive catalyst that can work with higher efficiencies, more than 10 and up to 100 times better efficiencies than any conventional catalyst. It is possible to do even reactions without any energy source, and it reduces the times of reactions from hours to milliseconds. One example of what our disruptive catalyst can do is green hydrogen. Just with water, sunlight, we can create green hydrogen in our AQCs. Only water and sunlight. But this is only one example. It solves a big problem, global warming and the need of low-cost, renewable, carbon-neutral fuels. And NanoGap is able to do it because we managed to do with our AQCs photon efficiencies of 15% compared to 1% of a conventional photocatalyst. As I said before, this is only one example. NanoGap's catalyst can actually address 24 different opportunities within the clean tech space. Some other examples are desulfurization, photocatalytic wastewater remediation, or CO2 hydrogenation. So why is our material so unique? The reason for that is because we have the smallest particle produced ever. When you reduce the time of the size of a particle, the properties change. So you can take one element of the periodic table, for example, silver or gold, and decreasing the size, you get new properties. When you go below 1 nanometer, this is the AQC size, the stability becomes really big and the reactivity becomes really big too. This combination makes them completely unique catalysts. We have a very strong IP protection. with more than 110 patents, 16 family patents altogether, and more than 75% of them already granted. We have patents not only on process and application, but also on product. NanoGap today can make this revolutionary technology be industrially implemented in a short time frame between 3 and 5 years. We have a market size of $25 billion. Our addressable market is $8 billion. We've managed to generate revenue over 1 million so far, and we are forecasting 20 million in 5 years and more than 300 million in 10 years. How do we generate income? Now in the short term is through our custom product development business model, CPD, from proof of concept to pilot scale. Then we can do industrial implementation, generating income through product sales on supply agreements and license, upfront payment and ongoing royalties, giving access to the use of our unique technology. This is the point where the exponential growth is expected. And who is the team behind this amazing opportunity? We have a directors team that altogether we have more than 100 years of experience on management, and we have scientific founders and advisors that have been working in nanotechnology for more than 30 years and have several national and international prizes. Today, NanoGap has already manufacturing facilities in Spain, Europe, and also in the States, in Silicon Valley. We also have a very strong partner in Japan who is helping us to develop the business in the Asian market. And what are we looking for? We're trying to close a round of 4 million euros. We already raised 1 million with our partner Repsol, so we're looking for 3 million to complete the financial round. We will use this money to invest in assets, capacity expansion, and also building application labs, and also for business development. And as a summary, why NanoGap will succeed? Because we have a revolutionary metal molecule AQC platform technology. We have demonstrated already high performance and commercial demand with real partners in place, major partners. We have an extremely strong IP protection, and we have been able to secure non-dilutive funding while retaining all the IP in NanoGap. And we are very focused on high growth and high value markets. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tatiana. As always, a pleasure having you. Really cool stuff. I mean, I must confess, I'm pretty nerdy, but when I see this kind of things and the kind of chemical reactions and the kind of new things we unlock with these new materials is really fascinating to see the possibilities. Sometimes I must say, it's a little bit like challenging because you see how long it takes for some of these companies to finally put something in our hands, but when they do, as these two companies have actually done, is absolutely extraordinary. And to talk about new materials, right? We have our next company, we're going all the way to Valencia, also here in Spain, but this time we're going to talk about plastics, and we're going to talk about something probably that a lot of you have heard about, which is 3D printing. But 3D printing is not just the machine. Is also the materials that we use to do the 3D printing. And not all the materials behave in the same way. So to talk about plastics, 3D printing, and new materials around plastics, please welcome our next startup. Big applause to Ignacio Garcia from Recreos.
Hello, my name is Ignacio Garcia, CEO of Recreos Industries, a company focused on 3D printing materials and equipment. In 2013, we launched Filaflex, the first truly flexible material for 3D printing. We unveiled the potential of 3D printing in the footwear industry. In 2016, we collaborated and sponsored Jensol, the first insole generator for 3D printers. In 2019, we were formed by Repsol with a seed round of 700K. We took a step forward. We have new distributors. Our sales are growing. We have an extended material portfolio. In 2020, we developed Recreos DDF, Direct Digital Fabrication, an industrial-grade 3D printing focused on 3D printing flexible and elastic materials. It's a step closer to go from mass customization to mass production. And you say, what's next? A totally custom 3D printed insole. High comfort, breathable, 3 times more durable. Designed and verified by poetries. Also, a perfect fit due to the 3D food scan technology. 0 waste. And only for 69 euros. And you may wonder, why? Let's start with the current situation on the industry. Insoles industry is a steel and handcraft sector with unsettled standards, non-repetitivity, and long lead times. CNC milling insoles produce around 63% of waste. That is a huge quantity of waste for just a part of insoles. Competitors that use 3D printing commonly are 50% more expensive, are limited by the materials. It has a long delivery times and costly equipment, and also a very high rate of. When you suffer foot pain, you have 2 options. You have 2 ways. You can go to buy a cheap insoles that doesn't fit your feet, temporary comfort maybe, but at the end don't fit your needs. Or in the other hand, you can go to poetries. First, visit the poetries, analyze and foot study of your feet, pay the first visit, second visit poetries, and the fourth, collect and test your insoles. All this process and insoles, it costs around 250 euros. And markets and statistics. 1 in 5 people in the world suffer foot pain. It's 20% of the population. The population age over 60 is slated to increase from 962 million in 2017 to 2,000 million in 2050. The population is getting older. Every 30 seconds, a limb is amputated in the world as a consequence of diabetes. A simple custom insoles can prevent the foot ulcer. Let's talk about the new healthy habits. Due to the new healthy habits, the sport insoles market is growing around 9% a year. And aged population, diabetes, and healthy habits, what does it mean? It means that the insole demand will multiply by 3. And how we do it? It's very easy. Yes, take your phone and introduce your biometric data in our app. Then, take 3 pictures of your feet with your smartphone and rear and front camera. Record the way you walk and just pay for the insoles. Meanwhile, in the back office, we have a poetries with artificial intelligence software designing and printing insoles to delivering in just 48 hours. What we offer? We offer a 0.8% of market share of a 5 billion insoles market that is growing around 6.3% per year. In this series, the investment size is around 2.5 and 3 millions. We use the fund for software development, 3D printers, marketing campaigns, and team. What should you invest? A vertical integrated business model. Repsol is on board and we are growing 65% over last year. We have done what we proposed doing and we will continue doing. Thanks for watching and good luck.
Thank you very much, Ignacio. Also, fantastic pleasure having you here. I'm, for one, also very big fan of 3D printing. We've been talking about this. We've been geeking around, like where we're preparing these things, we're geeking around 3D printing, and the rest of the stars were like, can you guys shut up for now? It's like, okay, well, we can keep talking about it later. But connected with 3D printing, and this time flying all the way to Finland, it is my pleasure to introduce our last and final startup of the afternoon, which is doing something incredible. They're taking 3D printing and technology to the next level, which is what would happen if you could actually 3D print circuitry, if you could 3D print electronics. Well, to talk about that, we have our next guest. So please welcome our next startup all the way from Finland, David Rice. He's the Senior Vice President of Marketing and Business Development for Tactotech.
Hello, I'm Dave Rice with Tactotech. Tactotech develops and industrializes injection molded structural electronics technology, what we call IMSE. OEMs and brands use our IMSE technology to design electronically active smart surfaces that deliver the user experiences their customers want economically. We license to manufacturers who globally sell and produce IMSE parts. Electronics have penetrated all aspects of our lives, in our cars, at home, at work, and even when we play. Increasingly, electronic functionality drives user experiences, value perceptions, and market differentiation. Use cases are expanding and placing new demands on function and integration. But there is a problem. Electronics design hasn't kept pace, and conventional electronics aren't a good match for many use cases. They have lots of parts, assembly depth that makes them impractical or impossible for many use cases, and a high total cost of ownership. At Tactotech, our mission is bold. Our IMSE technology is horizontal in appeal. Nevertheless, we have a disciplined approach to the market. Initial target markets include automotive and home appliances. Tactotech will transform the global electronics industry by inspiring and enabling intuitive, aesthetic, and economical smart plastic product designs that are sustainably mass manufactured. IMSE technology integrates printed electronics and traditional electronic components within 3D injection molded structures. The result is a seamless, single-piece structural smart surface that can be as thin as 2 millimeters. IMSE parts are light, thin, and strong, and because electronics are encapsulated in plastics, they are protected from harsh environments. IMSE parts are manufactured using standard equipment that is globally available, enabling rapid production scaling. As shown in this overhead control panel comparison, by integrating mechanical structure and electronic function within a single part, IMSE technology reduces complexity. A seamless IMSE smart surface with in-mold lighting, touch controls, and wireless connectivity can replace dozens of parts in a conventional electronics assembly, while reducing weight, thickness, greenhouse gas emissions, and total cost of ownership. Tactotech is an early growth company with many customers in the automotive market, as well as prominent successes in smart home and home appliances. The company's intellectual property foundations and structured approach to IMSE industrialization underlay our revenue streams. Tactotec has three primary revenue streams: engineering services for IMSE design and pre-production development for OEMs and brands, mass production agreements, and IMSE licensing that generates high margin revenue through significant upfront licensing fees and recurring royalties. We forecast cash flow positive operations by 2023. While Tactotec has already signed IMSE licensees and is in active negotiations with many more, today, more than ever, we are working directly with OEMs and brands to understand the optimal market fit for IMSE, build market pull for IMSE technology, and to develop business opportunities for both Tactotec and our IMSE licensees. We are focusing on highly targeted markets to promote efficiency across the organization, from sales processes to R&D priorities. And we will refine and extend our target markets to adjacent segments. Each of the initial target market segments has been validated for IMSE value proposition alignment with OEMs in those markets. Tactotec is led by Jussi Harvela, a seasoned CEO, board member, and investor who has led technology company in the US and the EU. Jussi has developed an experienced team supported by skilled employees in our Oulu, Finland headquarters and around the world. Together with the support of our partners and investors, the Tactotec team has built early market success founded on understanding customer needs and developing unique defensible technology aligned with those needs. We're in the right place at the right time, and we are executing a clear strategy for success. To learn more about Tactotec and IMSE technology, please visit our website or contact us directly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dave. It was a pleasure listening to your pitch. And as you can probably see, we're getting ready for the show here on the stage. So before we do that, I want to remind you about our Q&A and the questions that you can ask the startups. So please remember, we have the email here, corporateventuring@repsol.com. And make sure that if you have any questions to the startups, for the startups, about the startups, please shoot us an email. I'll be reading some of the emails that we've selected as they come in that we feel that are more interesting right now, but we will answer absolutely every single email, even if it's after the show. And without further ado, and to have a nice chat this afternoon about their companies, I want to welcome Clara Rey. She's the Corporate Venturing Director at Repsol. Clara, thank you very much for being here.
Hello, Alex. Hello,
Please
everyone.
take a seat. And to join Clara, I want to welcome Rafael Jimenez. He's the Polyofins Business Director at Repsol.
Hello, Alex.
Rafa, thank you very
Nice
much
to
for
be
being
here.
here. Please take a seat. I would say, is it okay to say if I say it's plastics?
Plastics.
There you go. I know there's a lot more behind that, but and also connected with us in real time, we have our four companies. So once again, I introduce Jesus de la Fuente, he's CEO of Grafenea, Tatiana Lopez, CEO of NanoGap, Ignacio Garcia, CEO of Recreus, and this time we have Jussi Harvela, CEO of Tactotec from Finland. So all four of you, and both of you here on stage, it's a pleasure having you. How are you feeling? Good? The new normal, real or whatever.
It's okay.
It's okay.
A new situation, yeah. We are facing a new situation. It's strange, always happening now, but well, it's
With
our.
mask is also strange. It's safe.
It's safer. That's
Plastic
right.
masks, plastic polypropylene masks.
There you go.
Yeah,
Nice
okay.
cue. There we go. That's a man. Well, so I'm going to start with a pretty generic question, but I think that it's been changing the way we do business, the way we interact with others. And I would love to hear from all of you, both Clara and Rafa, that I have you with me, but also for the startups. What has been the impact in your day-to-day with the pandemic, with COVID-19? Like from you can share from your personal perspective, from your team perspective. We were just having a talk before we came live about this, and or even from the business perspective, right? From corporate venturing, what has been dramatic or what has changed that has forced you and your team to change the way you operate. So we'll start with the ladies, if you don't mind. So Clara, please.
Okay, good. Well, as you told before, this situation is very strange for all of us. And I think that it has impacted to the business a lot. Personally, I think that we have to change our way of working, clearly. And from the business point of view, the impact has been very big also. I think that each company has responded to this COVID-19 crisis in a different way, depending on its situation, its targets, and its sector, because not all the sector have suffered in the same measure. Everybody knows that for some companies, this crisis brought a huge opportunity to build new businesses. But in general, to explain our situation or our experience in the venture, in the corporate venture in Repsol, currently we are focused on supporting the companies in our portfolio, securing its viability. That's our first priority. Regarding investment, what is very important for a corporate venture fund, we are being very selective, even more selective than I was before, if that's possible, and extremely aligned with the strategy of our company. In the third place, we are not thinking only on investment. We keep in mind other relationships that we think that are very interesting for both companies or startups and us as a corporate, like, for example, developing a proof of concept in our assets, or also join technology development. So as a summary, we are working to be a profitable fund, that's for sure. But our first priority is to develop new technologies, new business models, completely aligned with the strategy of our company that our Jaime said in the video at the beginning of this event is clearly focused on energy transition.
So this is kind of interesting because you're saying that you're probably restricting a little bit more the way you're selecting the companies for the portfolio. Is there, like, out of the top of your mind, is there like any red flag that right now, because of the situation, is something that you're like looking really closely, or the opposite? Is there like a specific trend that you would say like, these are the kind of companies that we really like, beyond being aligned, obviously?
There is any red line, any red flag. What we have is a strong guideline, so we are not going to put any euro on the table if it is not perfectly aligned with the strategy of our company, because we have technology development behind this project, or we have a new business model supported by some of the business of our company. So there are no red lines, but we have a strong alignment with the company strategy.
Is that strategy somewhere where the startups can actually find it? So is the strategy that those guidelines somewhere where the companies or the startups, potential startups that might be willing to work with you guys?
Well,
is it available somewhere?
We as a corporate venture fund, we are focused on energy transition. Okay. So our fields in which we are looking for new project and new development are mainly low carbon processes and products, everything related to circular economy, advanced mobility, digitalization, because this is an enabler, clearly, and renewables. So we are really focus on that fields.
And we need to talk afterwards. I have a couple of companies you probably
Okay.
want to meet.
Okay, perfect. Nice.
Thank you very much, Clara. So speaking of, I was just thinking about renewable and biodegradable plastics, which is probably your field eventually or something close by. So Rafael, once again, pleasure having you. So how have you feel that impact on your side? You come from very different sides, right? From in the company, even though you do collaborate and you work very closely. Just for everyone to understand this, right? You have the corporate venturing strategy, and each of the companies that are in the portfolio are actually how we would say kind of partner up with some of the heads of the businesses in the company. In which case, Rafael is one of them. So. How have you feel the differences in both in business, probably in your business line, on the plastic business line, but also maybe in those kind of close collaborations?
Yeah. Yes, I work for the chemical business of Repsol. Then we have, I would say, a solid business. And when the crisis came or started to come to Europe, to be honest, we were scared about the potential impact of that business. Because well, we have plants in Iberia, different. We supply to many customers, thousands of customers, 90 countries. Then we were sure that at the end of the day, the crisis was going to affect in some way to the demand, to the supply. Then we started to work on it, as everyone. Sorry for the mask. Because to maintain the operations, the first thing was to keep the people safe. That's important, no? Then we had to implement new contingency plans to assure the continuity in the operations, not only in our plants all around supply. That was the first point. The second point was that we started to see that materials, we produce chemicals, plastics, other materials. We started to see that materials started to play a key role in the fight against COVID. That was something that perhaps before we hadn't thought about that. No, we saw how plastic is important for food packaging, for healthcare, for 3D printing. That was something important. And at the same time, we saw how the different applications were suffering in a different way. Everybody knows that, for instance, auto, construction were affected in a very strong way, but others like food packaging or pharma or others were suffering increased demand in the pattern. Then we had to react, we have to change plans. Flexibility was important at that moment to change our programs, our plans, and to try to adapt our production to the new demand patterns. Then, well, I would say that looking back now, although we are in, I don't know, in second wave or 1.5 wave, I don't know, I'm not sure, but we can see that materials are playing a role, are playing a very important function in this society. And then, in some way, we feel that we leave this crisis strengthened as a sector, as a not only Repsol in chemical, but also the whole sector.
Well, it's interesting because we were talking on the backstage before, and it's really impressive that you guys as a company had a contingency plan already for the continuity of business. So the kind of breakage that we've seen in other companies maybe wasn't that hard in terms of from the teamwork, right? But in terms of production, as you were pointing out, were there times where they really like caught you like, okay, we need to really reshift? Because I've interviewed a lot of people recently, and some people tell me, you know, even if we had the capabilities, we just weren't prepared for the demand that we had on one side. So we literally had to shift resources to work on those points. So I don't know if you guys were capable of dealing with the volumes in the different areas or the different products that were requesting, or it was already there as a framework, right? You were capable of shifting quickly from one to the other.
Well, I think we were discovering when the weeks were passing by, because for instance, the mask, the protective clothes, we were not supplying so high volumes of polypropylene for this application, and in the opposite, we have some compounds, automotive plants that were prepared to work. Then we have to adapt. The flexibility, as I mentioned, was critical. We were not prepared. We never thought about that. But to be honest, I think our company was well prepared to do that, and also in the production field, in operations, people were making special things that perhaps we have never before, because we haven't needed before.
Yeah, no, that's a feeling I have talking with you guys. That and I'm gonna be very honest. I think you're the first company I've interviewed around these topics that actually had a contingency plan in place for eventualities like this, and that has actually been executed flawlessly. Well, as flawlessly as sometimes these things, but flawlessly. So congratulations both, because I think that is not easy at all, much less with a company the size of Repsol. So that's impressive that you guys achieved this. Sure. Yeah, no, that's why I'm saying I think a lot of people have this feeling that because you guys are a big company, like there is no flexibility, and I think that this scenario actually shows quite the opposite. That at least from a people's point of view, there was a lot of flexibility and capacity to bend the muscle and adapt to the reality of what was happening. Well, to keep talking about this, I want to move the conversation to our startups that are connected with us. I'll start with you, Jesus, if you don't mind. And I would love to hear, you sit in a really interesting space, because among the different business lines that Grafenea has, one of them is related to semiconductors. So I would love to hear what's your take. How has the COVID impacted your business and how you've adapted to it?
So to add, because I completely agree with the points that the other speakers presented, that one thing that we are seeing is that the technology adoption cycles are getting shorter and shorter. So people are in need of new devices, and this is obvious in the biomedical space, but it's also true in other spaces. So I think that it's a good opportunity for maybe technology adoptions that could take 5 or 7 years. Now it's possible to do it in 1 year. And that's something, that is singularity and never happened before. And I think that if we are well prepared and we can manage all the challenges that for sure we are facing, with the virus, with the financial crisis and so on. But if we are able to deal with that, I think that it will be a very good moment for technology startups these coming years. Yeah, I think that this is going to be a very good vintage of technology startups.
To be honest, it's interesting because we've talked about this before. The medical devices, which is one of the fields that you're heavily working and relying on, is actually kind of exploded. You felt that through your business? Do you feel that kind of pull, and will it stay, or do you think it will kind of fizzle down eventually?
Yeah, that's a good point. If probably these trends move like waves, and probably we are having like a high peak in the wave. But for example, if you take the authorizations, the emergency use authorizations that the FDA released in the past months, that was unprecedented. So it was dozens of authorizations that never happened before. And that's only one example. So I also really believe that the society and the pharma and medical devices companies, they have realized that they need better technology, and they have to be better prepared for, let's say, for the next virus, for the next pandemic.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the mighty FDA and the way they're changing the rules, because it's actually impacting especially a lot of companies in the biotech space, but also other companies in other spaces. And precisely to talk about that, Rafa, thank you very much. Jesus, sorry, I'm just too many names. Jesus, thank you very much. I'll come back to you because I want to hear more about a little bit of the future, but I want to move to Tatiana. We were talking about this, and it is true that not every single company is seeing like the explosion that probably Jesus is experiencing. But I would love to hear from Tatiana, because you're deep into the catalyst industry and the chemical industry. How is it? How's the feeling in that space? Because you have a very, very advanced material. So how are you feeling the pandemic on your side?
I think one of the biggest advantage on this very complicated context is that startups like NanoGap and all of these startups that we're talking here, we are very flexible. And it was, I think, one thing that it was very important during these times, and still is in these times of uncertainty, and is the possibility or the flexibility to not stop, to keep moving fast, but at the same time, to be aware of the risks and be very conscious about the situation and manage those two things. And I think during this time, I think we have been more helpful to our partners and our clients than ever before, because most of our clients are very big corporations, which they, of course, are also reacting, but the speed that they can react is different to the speed that maybe a startup can react, and how we can move things quicker. And I think that's an advantage that we try to use on benefit of helping to solve some of the problems and the different context that was coming up to us. Also, another thing I think it was important for NanoGap, and I think it's important for every company during these times of uncertainty, it's to use communication. Communication is always important, but I think more than ever, we had made a huge effort on transparency, honesty, communication with every stakeholder, with shareholders, board of directors, employees, clients. And I think in this war where the uncertainty is coming from every angle, I think that was also something good that probably we will keep as a learning that, and we will continue using for future situations.
Oh, that's very interesting that you raised that point, because you're not the only person I've heard so far when talking about the impact of the pandemic, that communication has been key. For some people, it's been the struggling with the communication aspect, but for others, like you were saying a moment ago, it's been more about like actually increasing more communication, and they've realized that now they have more fluent connection with other parts of the company, other stakeholders than they had before. And I think that's becoming the norm for a lot of people, despite what we think about the communication aspect. But have you seen, like, do you have specific cases that you could mention, like this happened because we were better communicating with whatever stakeholder we have? Oh, Tatiana, I believe we have you muted, so we can.
Yes.
There you go.
Sorry for that.
Thank
yeah,
you.
I'm back. So yeah, definitely, I think there are things that are easier to see the impact of it, and that was probably a lot of the communication we did with some of our clients and partners. We were in the middle. We work with a very intense R&D structure within NanoGap. As you can imagine, with such a disruptive technology, and suddenly all the universities, research centers were closing. So a lot of the tools that we use in collaborations were stopping. And that was critical for a lot of the projects that we had going on. So I think the speed that we took on talking to partners, looking at what other things can we do, how can we change the scope of these projects, and doing this quickly, it helped to not stop, and it helped to actually continue in the activity. And I think it was seen as a strong benefit from our partners. And more important, we didn't stop the projects, because we managed to see, okay, this is coming. We have to look other ways to do this. Let's rescope projects. And I think that flexibility and doing things like that had an impact that you can track or see very easily. But again, I think all the communications also with every stakeholder was important, but that one maybe has bigger impact.
No, but thank you very much for sharing. I think a lot of other people need to hear this, because I think sometimes we're not aware of how vulnerable some of our supply or value chain is, right? And you're collaborating with this place and that place, and then suddenly, especially as you pointed out, when you're doing advanced materials, right? And you are in a partnership with a lot of research centers or scientists all across the world, because it's not just locally, and it deeply affects this kind of disruption. So thank you very much, Tatiana. It was a pleasure. I'll be back with you guys in a moment. And I want to move the conversation to Ignacio, CEO of Recreus. Ignacio, how has been your side, right? 3D printing, especially plastic 3D printing, has been named like the savior when we needed like face masks or face shields and stuff like that. You are an insider of the industry. How did your company live through that situation, please?
Okay, for me, it means that this technology has grown up from a child to a teenager in just few months. Because we have seen a very fast response to the break of stock of a lot of protection devices for COVID. The open source community organized quickly, responded to the safety medical needs, and maybe I think it's close to 1 million of protection seals were produced in just a few weeks with 3D printing. In our part, we find that the demand multiplied by 3 in just 2 months, and we need to create and implement new equipment in our facilities to cover this demand. And also, it was very interesting because we launched a month earlier that the pandemic starts, polypropylene developed with Repsol. And this polypropylene has a lot of success during the pandemic because it can be sterilized in autoclave, and we have been working with a lot of teams of development on different hospitals around Europe and also here in Spain. Were a very, very hard month, but we have new conclusions and new things to think about to improve our material and the contact with the customers.
It's quite interesting because I've heard this story before. It's like, well, we weren't prepared. Now we had to change the way we do things to cope with the demand, but we came out stronger. But every time I kind of push, they say like, that first month was horrible, right? It was just like really madness. But it's interesting from your point of view. I have the feeling that there's all these new materials and all these new uses, for example, of plastics, that we see them now, and honestly, at least when I read about them, I go like, why hadn't we thought about this before, right? Like, we had the capacity to do these materials. Why weren't we using them before, right? When I hear about, oh no, this material is antiviral or whatever, I'm like, why didn't we have that before, right? If we could do it? So I don't know, what's your take on that? Oh, mute. We have you muted. There you go. We're gonna have to remember.
Okay.
There you go.
I think that there is a lot of myths around all of this antibacterial material and all this stuff. Okay, I think that the virus can live in a surface during hours. Okay, some materials can reduce this, but doesn't eliminate the virus. Okay, and we need to think always to think about the safety and not to be don't to be so how it says exciting about this antibacterial material, because there are no the real. Okay, but anyway, there is now a new developments focus on this, working hard to develop more antibacterial and more with nanoparticles that help to reduce the time of life of the virus. And I think it's a good line to investigate these days.
Okay, that's great. Ignacio, thank you very much for sharing this information and your perspective on this. I'll be back with you also in a second. And I want to welcome our third guest. So Juicy, pleasure having you. Thank you very much for the connection all the way from Finland. And I believe that you, as CEO of Tactotech, you guys have been working a lot with the car industry, with the automobile industry, right? And so this current situation has been probably especially dramatic for airlines on one side. So those of you doing plastics with airlines probably have felt the pressure, but also with the car industry. So what is your take? How has Tactotech felt? Has it been good, bad? Has there been like departments or lines that you didn't expect to grow until maybe in 2 years and suddenly they've exploded? So what has been your experience?
Yeah, hello, greetings from Helsinki. And first of all, I think we've had a very different 6 months than Spain or Central Europe, Southern Europe, because Finland has been not really impacted by COVID at all. Of course, our customers have been impacted, but we've had a very normal lives here other than travel. So no possibility to travel anywhere, and which changes quite a lot how the companies behave and how you run marketing and sales. If we look at the automotive industry, it went into a complete standstill in March, April timeframe. Fortunately, Tactotech had a strong order book, so we have a long-term projects which we've been carrying out, working on those over the summer, and we haven't had big impact because of that. And interestingly, although the automotive sales went down in some of the geographies close to 100% for month to month or year to year compared to some of the months, it's somehow experienced a V type of a recovery in units sold. And in most of the geographies, it's interesting to see that whether it's something which is longer lasting or is it just something filling up orders which have been made before COVID timeframe. But most of the factories are back online right now and operating in super speed. Second market where we've been operating is white goods, so large appliances. My understanding is that some of the players there, they actually have sold out their entire annual numbers of let's say dishwashers and washing machines due to the fact that people are staying more at home and doing a lot of home improvement type of activities, buying appliances over the internet. But it's a very challenging environment because there's so much uncertainty around the industrial side. How long this will last? Is it something which will be sort of changing the behavior patterns forever? But it's a small company like us, we're 100 people, we are agile, quick on our feet. We turned many things around how we operate, and today we're operating completely virtually, other than the manufacturing operations. Something, the show must go on. You have to innovate the way how you operate.
No,
but automotive has been quite an interesting ride over the past 6 months.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think you highlighted two very important things, and as Spaniards here, I talk with a lot of people outside of Spain, and sometimes you have the feeling that, we are the only ones feeling this kind of like constant pressure and staying at home and this kind of fear of the virus. But then I see a lot of other friends in other markets, and they say like, yeah, people here, they take care about this, but it's not the same feeling. And I think your take is a very good point on that not all the geographies are feeling, even though it's interconnected and we still live in an interconnected world. And then the second point I would highlight that I think is very interesting is the recuperation, right? I also know people that they tell me that they've had more work this year than ever before, like even accounting for those 2-3 months where there was this hiatus and they couldn't really work. So do you think that's going to affect Tactotech in the sense that there's going to be certain technologies that you're going to sell easier now than before, or for you still like pretty much according to plan, even though maybe the volumes are slightly higher?
I think there's sort of two aspects to that is that first of all, price competition, cost consciousness has increased quite a bit right now because the large OEMs and peers are losing money. they have to be operating. So it's price, cost, everything. But at the same time, they just can't lay there and die. They have to innovate. They have to be more competitive. And what we've seen especially is a lot of activity in China and Asian countries attacking right now very fiercely with the marketing campaigns and a lot of money in the play. So there's a sort of a big change happening right now because of this. The rules of the engagements are changing. We as a Tactotech, we provide our customers differentiation, and we provide them a total cost of ownership benefit. So we've been fortunate. We haven't lost any projects. No projects have been canceled and delayed, of course, because there was no people working for several months in most of our countries. But we see a quite bright future ahead of us because of the change in the behavioral patterns right now.
No, I'm a big fan of the West versus East riff right now, and I love talking about this stuff. So it's fantastic that you bring up a bit of this, competition that there is, to name it somehow, between Western countries and most specifically US and Asia and China, and kind of Europe is sandwiched in between. So it's kind of for all the companies working there, eventually they will probably have to choose a side, and so there's this really aggressiveness happening that I think it's very interesting, and I love that you shared that perspective. We're actually running a little bit out of time, so I had another question, but I'm kind of conflated with the Q&As now. So just a reminder, I'm getting some of these questions here. Now we're going to open the floor for questions. So I'll start with one that we already got via email, and it's going to be for you, Rafael. So are you ready? Still with us? Okay. So it has to do a little bit more with the future predictions, and it reads something like, it seems that all future predictions forecast a lower weight of oil in the energy matrix of the future. And Clara was mentioning before, like energy transition and all that stuff. But from your point of view, from your situation, is it going to impact the market in some way into the future of chemicals and materials? Is there going to be, from your personal perspective as someone in that field that is watching, it's constantly seeing how it's evolving, what would be your predictions? How is that going to move?
Well, it seems that all the forecasts say that, although still the oil is included as a basic source of energy for the future on a global basis, but it's true that is going to lose this weight. It's clear that as a percentage of each oil barrel, materials are going to increase its presence in the future, clearly. This is going to cause changes in the way of production. We think that the refining and chemicals, for instance, are going to be more interrelated, more integrated. We are going to see changes in the future because we are, for instance, today working on recycling plastic, for instance, and to recycle plastics because it's very important to take care of the plastics after the final usage. That's very important, and it's going to be something to be in the first position of the priorities from now on in the chemical industry. But if you are able to take plastic waste and to put in a chemical plant and to produce some oil, some streams that can feed the refineries, and after that you can recover as chemical materials. We are starting to do it today. Then I think it's clear that in the future, from the oil, more materials are going to be allocated to each barrel, clearly.
It's actually, I'm going to tell you a story. I was recently talking with someone working in the plastic industry. They said, like, yeah, they sold us this biodegradable material, biodegradable plastic. So what we've done is we've planted it outside in the garden, and we're waiting X amount of days to see if it's actually true.
Biodegradable. It's quite more complicated, yeah.
I know. I was like, well, pretty empirical testing, but.
Well, but if better than biodegrade plastics, to produce a plastic, you have spend a lot of money, resources, carbons. It's a pity to biodegrade that. If you can recover and to transform in other material, it's optimal, I would say.
No, definitely. I mean, there's so many challenges there. There's so many pieces that come into play. Okay, so thank you very much, Rafael. Pleasure. Let's keep on moving with the questions. I believe that we might have some questions on our video wall. So let's see if we can. You raise your hands if you have any questions. Okay, so I believe we have one question from Victoria Aznar from Insomnia. Victoria, please come through.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, Alex, and thank you, Repsol and Summit, for letting me participate in this interesting showcase from Repsol Corporate Venturing. My question is for Jesus from Graphenea. Jesus, thank you for your presentation, and also to the other startups that have presented their project. We have seen, Jesus, that you operate at international level, Europe, US, Japan, more than 60 countries, I think. And if I'm right, you work with more than 800 clients. Could you please give us an example of an application of any of your customers?
Yes, of course. So one use case is that we are working for several years with Toshiba in Japan, and we are producing graphene materials and graphene chips for them for biomedical application, and they are, you know, in a very good phase in clinical trials and so on. So that's one example of our applications. Also, we are working with a former unit of Nokia, Emberion, in Europe, that they produce advanced camera sensors. So those are two examples of use cases of the material.
I think you're muted. Oh, there we go. Well, thank you.
Sorry, I was thanking Jesus and congratulating him for the expansion plan they have.
Thank you very much, Victoria. It's, you know, two clients, former Nokia, this and that. I love how humble Jesus is about how well the business is going. So I have a question that came in also through email, and it's very interesting because kind of replicates a little bit of what I talked. This one is going to be for Tatiana from NanoGap, and I read, we've been hearing about nanoparticles for a long time, but why do you think that now is the right time for this technology? I am also personally very curious about that question too. Tatiana?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I think it's not only now the time, and I think I like to compare the nanotechnology to the discovery of manipulating electrons and how that gave to electricity, and how electricity is applying and changing every single aspect of our life. I think this is something similar with nanotechnology. How we learn to manipulate materials at nanoscale is already impacting in a lot of ways that I think society doesn't realize yet, in so many different ways. I think today we have more than 800 manufacturing plants on nano products. I think there is about 40 labs that are manufacturing drugs that are being used based or benefiting from nanotechnology, that are being used on illness that before, some years ago, it was untreatable, like cancer or Alzheimer, or more application day-to-day things like food packaging. Food packaging is another area where I think nanotechnology has already impacted significantly, and they use nanoclays. This helps on barriers from a mechanical and thermal point of view for the gases, and it allows the food to stay well longer. And we just realize that things are evolving, that we have more drugs that are working, that food stays longer. And maybe sometimes we don't realize that nanotechnology is already impacting our lives. But it is true that this is probably the tip of an iceberg. And what we have below is a lot bigger than that. And this is one of the challenges on nanotechnology, how you, in nanomaterials company like NanoGap, how do you diversify or control the diversification of your opportunities, because you can apply these materials for so many different applications. And just as an example, in NanoGap, which we deal with that on a daily basis, we have actually created a business model where we create startups on different verticals where we see there is a really big potential that can move forward quicker through the value chain. And as an example, we created 2 years ago Arjuna Therapeutics. This is a company using our AQCs for drug treatment, for cancer treatment. Now it's going to clinical phase, and that was a benefit for our investors, multiplying by 30 its value while generating amazing opportunities like, doing things like cancer treatment for a glioblastoma or brain cancer, which wasn't treatable before. And I think that's what nanotechnology is bringing, is amazing opportunities in so many different ways.
No, I think it's beautiful that you expose these things because, as you said, all this magic is already happening, but I think it doesn't normally get that much let's say marketing, that much highlights, right, on the press. So it's great that you're talking about these things. For once, I actually know your spin-off, but we talked before that I didn't really know that it was your spin-off until you told me, and it was like, whoa, that's amazing. Very quick question, Tatiana, because you mentioned the manipulation of electrons and electricity. Edison or Tesla?
Difficult one.
It's being recorded right now. Go for it. Oh.
I don't know.
No one? Tesla? Maybe? I'm hearing people here telling me Tesla. Well, we'll have to talk later about this.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you very much, Tatiana, for the question. And I don't know if we have any other question on our video wall. Please raise your hands. Let's see if we have someone else. There we go. We have Gonzalo Martinez from Cardemum. Gonzalo, who is your question for?
Hi, thank you very much, Repsol South Summit, for organizing this interesting discussion. I'm Gonzalo Martinez Azagala, co-founder at Carmen Capital, managing a 60 million fund investing in deep tech and supported by Repsol. So I'm going to address the question to Clara. And we've seen that clearly the current pandemic has sped up the digitalization around the world. Do you foresee future investments also gravitating around this topic?
Thank you, Gonzalo, for your question. I completely agree. Yes, definitely. I think that digitalization plays a key role in the future of industry and businesses. It's clear that we shouldn't forget other very interesting initiatives to invest, and more especially in the case of Repsol, like, for example, all related to improvement of operation and efficiency, or everything related to circular economy or decarbonization. But in my opinion, new disruptive technologies, like, for example, IoT or artificial intelligence or big data or blockchain, are enablers and key pillars to develop new, to create new business and to transform the current ones, to have more efficient and safer processes, to have more information about customer needs, and to get a quicker response to them. So that's clear that digitalization is a key vector of investment for corporate venturing.
Oh, please remember, thank you, Gonzalo, for your question. Remember, cybersecurity, kids, cybersecurity. We don't want to connect our industries and not having them protected. I used to work there in cybersecurity, so I know it is firsthand. This is all my friends in cybersecurity. They keep telling me, you have no idea how many connected devices people are putting out there and how unsecure they are. And like, yeah, I can imagine. Anyway, I don't know if we have any other questions. Fantastic video wall. Any other questions? Okay, we have one. I believe it's Ignacio Huiti from Inno Energy. Where are you?
Hello.
Oh, there you go.
Hello. Thank you to Repsol for the invitation, and thank you for the startups for the great presentations and super interesting. I have a question for Ignacio from Recreos. So, sorry, I'm Ignacio Wifi from EIT No Energy. We are an innovation ecosystem, and we also invest in startups since 2010. Ignacio from Recreos, my question is, which is the next step in the additive manufacturing to move from prototyping technology to production technology?
We have muted Ignacio.
Hello. In my opinion, I think the next step is to start the verticalization of the sector, of each sector that can be susceptible of the use of additive manufacturing. For example, talking about insoles industry, it demonstrates that 3D printing insoles can compete with the traditional ones, okay? But to achieve this, we need to optimize and improve all the elements of the value chains, okay? For example, starting from the materials. For the materials development, improving the speed of 3D printing, improving the design and production software, and also adapting and optimizing the design to additive manufacturing as well, and adding a machine learning layer. And I think the additive manufacturing industry is starting to realize that how important is the verticalization and specialization to play a central role in the next in the next years. We have a very good example with dental industry that has a verticalized and integrate additive manufacturing in the daily production.
Okay. Well, I love it. It's Ignacio, Ignacio, Ignacio meet Ignacio, Ignacio meet Ignacio. Thank you, Ignacios, both of you.
Thank you.
I'm just.
Thank you.
I was just hearing the answer, and I was thinking, you know, this is for Ignacio. Maybe later we can talk about this, but also 3D printing, right? The assembling is not just the printing. It's how far are we from having machines that can assemble what we 3D print, right? I'll leave it there. That's for the next episode. And I have another question. This one came through email for Tactotech. You have a revolutionary technology, and I suppose that you have started implementing it in the most expensive vehicle models. When do you consider that this technology will be available for the most common cars? So essentially, a translation, when are we going to see that in our cars? Will we still have cars, by the way? That's something I will add personally.
Yes, I think you will have cars, and there will be some sort of a means of moving around, especially if we look at the country like Finland. You know, it's a long and there's a lot of emptiness here, not only cities. But actually, IMSC technology not only provides differentiation, but decreasing the total cost of ownership. So we are, as today, working with number of not only top end, but also medium class vehicles. So not the most, you know, rudimentary vehicles, but there's a lot of ambient lighting, a lot of different types of control elements which we can simplify and make it more intuitive from a user experience point of view. You know, touchscreen is nice to have there in the middle, but if you've been operating those, you understand what sort of a potential hazard that is when you are driving on the road. You focus too much, you go through different menu selections. So there will be different types of ways how you operate. And for example, flaps within your steering wheel will get more intelligent and more ergonomic. And you will see those things starting from 2020 to 2023 timeframe in cars. So our technology, a couple of years out.
No, it's quite interesting because I think you raise a very good point, which is, you know, having the capacity to print these things allow us to design new forms that weren't available before, right? Like we are limited. And I know this is going to be weird, okay, but just stay with me for a second. I'm a big fan of Asia and China, and I was recently reading about the difference between forging and like wrought iron and melted iron, right? And what are the chemical properties from a metallurgic point of view? And a lot of the things have to do with the way you create those metal objects. and they were restricted to the process of how we did that, right? And that was what you could achieve. And I feel like plastics and the kind of environment that we live in is in most cases restricted by how we build those things. So the fact that you allow to embed electronics and your incredible technology allows to that get printed into 3D circuits, it's gonna really unlock a lot of stuff. So I'm actually personally looking forward to see what do we get out of that. Okay, let me check. I don't know if we have any other final questions. I don't believe so. Let me check the email. Okay, so I believe we don't have any other more questions for the startups. It was an absolute pleasure having all of our 4 startups, 4 guests, and my 2 guests standing here with me. And so thank you all, but don't leave. Stay here with me because we have one final talk, some closing remarks, and I'm very excited to hear what she has to say. So Clara, well, first of all, Rafael, thank you so much for joining us here. And we're gonna let Clara tell us a little bit more for the final remarks. So with all of you, Clara, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex, for conducting this showcase. It was really great. I think I can remove my mask because now I am alone in the floor. So I think I feel more comfortable in that way. Thanks also to all the participants for sharing with us your experience and your knowledge. I think that we got very interesting insight today. Hopefully next time we can see each other face to face. Well, I don't like to finish, to end up this event without sharing with you some of my thoughts. As Jaime said at the beginning of this event, we have a huge challenge as a company. Our challenge is to be net zero emission in 2050. Be carbon neutral. This is a huge commitment, and it comes with a huge responsibility. I think that not only Repsol is not an exception. All the companies in the energy sector has to face a deep transformation in this environment because of the new demand of customers and the society in general. And for us, the key lever to achieve this huge commitment is innovation. Innovation that comes from inside the company, but also for outside the company, as you have seen with those startups we presented here. As I told before, during the roundtable, our focus is the energy transition, but the energy transition has no future without advanced material. Advanced material are present in every energy system, in every process. Things like selective membranes or batteries or recycling processes need high performance material. So we are glad to have these 4 companies in our portfolio as a proof that energy transition has no future without advanced materials. Well, I'm afraid time is up. I have to thank you again for your time and for your participation. See you next time. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Clara. It was a pleasure having you here. And well, guys, this is the end of the show. So I hope you all enjoyed our time together. And it was my pleasure spending this afternoon with you. It was my pleasure working with the startups. I must confess, some of them I already knew. So for me, it was a big pleasure listening to the evolution. And as we said before, advanced materials require time to get there, right? There's a lot of years of research behind a lot of these companies, and it takes a while to see the reality implemented into commercial products. So my sincere congratulations to all the startups, because it's impressive what you guys have achieved so far. I hope our audience really enjoyed listening to them. Sometimes, I must confess, they're hard to understand because it's hard science. There's a lot of research, as I said. So, but stick with them, because these are the kind of companies that, for those of us that we like deep technology, these are the companies that change the world. So thank you all for companies. Thank you to the audience for being here and connecting with us. And thank you so much, Repsol, for making this happen. It's my pleasure showcasing part of your portfolio companies, because these are not the only ones. And precisely to, if you want more information, if you want to talk with Repsol and the corporate venturing team, maybe for partnerships, maybe to get more information and intel about the startups, remember that we have this email that I showed before, corporateventuring@repsol.com, and shoot them your doubts, your questions. And as I said before, all the questions that you have already emailed, we will answer, or they will answer. So this is all. Everyone, I hope you enjoyed. I know for sure I did. And see you next time.
Thank you.